facilities started, folks, and they do this. Stop it. They know it's like they say not believe it. I'm saying, say to my dog, just so you know, they for me this for a while. Yeah, I see her over there. She said it's on her. Okay, anyway, yeah, great. It's good. I'll tell you.
Okay, so ladies, you guys come on in here for 2 minutes. Okay, maybe 5. Come on in.
Time to get to work. But I do need to leave. I didn't want to laugh away. In there.
Yeah.
At night, on my phone, I'm watching my son. I think I'm very late. I get to my 60 slightly tweaks with you so much. I'm not a space.
And you can sit wherever you can find.
Here, you. Yeah.
Oh,
Oops.
here, you sit. Why don't you sit?
Maybe we're not sitting too. I'm not so fun. I'm trying to stay.
Yeah. I'm going to put this on.
No.
We need something done.
Here we go.
We need something done.
It's to help you answer before I was just love that. How much my seeing of Andy weeks are sitting like 97 saying it very good. I should have you're not going to the staff. Yes. And so she's so I'll push for me. My son
Yeah, wants to see on the bro.
she's never I'm gonna eat your slaughter. Yeah, pretty neat. So no, they don't have that's all so you know wrong. Never. So where do you like this? Okay, do you want to start? Okay. No, they said let's tell her. But it's stuff. We're to be out. Oh, stuff. Oh, no, good guys. Yeah, I'm excited. So I think that's why actually was you know also to say let's see. I know like stay shot and it has like also yeah. Well, this is fine. Yeah, that's just yes, it's just say lots of less. It's I didn't find it to that's just and it's like you as well. Our interview JC wants that with respect to the damage. I'm just doing that stuff really without flow like also. And so you need a knife. All right, nothing. You need it up in saying I'm so sad. I don't like the words of everything class. So you guys know here. Yes, you all are here. It's 7 and she'll be back. I'm going to take the phone.
Yours.
Just and how are you? Meet Eleanor and I have things here. And welcome to
My friends. Well, and this isn't even that many people.
and then welcome to Eleanor's Boston launch of her book Fallout.
Who now?
Which is already won an award from Publishers Weekly. And by the way, Gray's amazing. And the moment you think you might have done something cool in your youth is the moment you need to go read Eleanor's memoir, 65 postcards, and you're like, dork. I am not cool at all. My husband read a few and he's like, and he's a real book snob. Reads lots of esoteric book of men, booker, and books. And he's like, this is really good. And I agree. You have a way of saying what you mean in a way that sticks with you. And there's so much being written now, so much being put out there. But to have Elisa Kennedy Jones as the head of Empress Editions, putting out books by midlife women who are typically not given a fair shake these days because so many of them were busy for so many years raising kids or working, and now they have some time to finally put it on paper. And Elisa has published 19? Yeah, 19 books.
Wow.
Yeah. With a ton more to come, and it's only been a year. And Fallout is one of them. And you also have a book that just came out too.
Oh, my book. It's not out yet.
That's what I had to
yes,
say. I
it's
think that was out.
But yeah, we're now the largest midlife women's book indie press for women in the nation. And we started here in Boston. after a lot of stress. And I was talking with Kim and I was like, I think I'm going to do this here. And she was like, why don't you do it in Boston? It wasn't and so we started it.
You were in California.
I was in California before, in San Francisco. And I wanted to be closer to my children who were here. And I wanted to make it easier for a family to be all together. And she said, why don't you start in Boston? You could even get a place. Walking up and down the street, talking about it. And the very next day, I started with her and Heather.
That's right.
Did it.
Yeah.
And Kim came on board to help me.
Residentials.
Yes. And read books and gave her thoughts and said, no, yes.
Well, so you all, when you leave, there's a goodie bag out there. The goodie bags while they last, and the books. And within the book, Elisa got a treat, a special treat from LexRx, the place on Charles Street that does
Facial
beauty perks. And there's one on Charles Street, there's one in Nantucket, and they may have another one somewhere.
Yeah.
But so don't just toss the little piece of paper that's in the book out, because that's about $40.
You have to go and have some regrets.
Yeah. And then Eleanor's book, and I'm sure she'll be signing, and a little tote bag.
Yes.
And
But you never had too many tote bags.
well, you never have too many tote bags. But I'll let you can read to us, right?
And read to us, then we're going to
Yeah, but I'm going to see if Kitty will come back.
She got it all. I always love it when she got it done.
Yeah, oh, she has it off.
I'm going to say, like, come on, she might hear that. I left 2 cats in England in the house, and he keeps sending me great little shots of them all the time. So, okay, thank you. It's lovely to meet you all. And thank you so much for coming out for the format. It's very exciting. Thanks, Lisa. Thank you, Kim.
I'll give you a little background to where the novel is set. The novel is set at Greenham Common Women's Peace Camp, which one of the reasons, actually it's not the reason I wrote the novel, but since writing it, I have discovered that I've only met one person in the UK under the age of 30 who's heard of Greenham Common. And in a minute, you'll see quite how outrageous that is. And in America, I wouldn't necessarily expect you to have heard of it. But even so, you should have done. It was a protest camp that lasted 19 years, and it achieved its goals. And I was going to read the very, very beginning for just the prologue, which really sets that background for you so you can understand quite what an incredible protest camp it was. The personal is political, and it's dedicated for Greenham women everywhere. This is all true. Okay. In 1981, prompted by the arrival into their kitchens of the survival manual, and here it is, the survival manual. Please do have a look at it. I'll pass it. In 1981, prompted by the arrival into their kitchens of the survival manual, Protect and Survive, which had been issued by the Home Office in case of nuclear war, 4 women in Wales gathered a small group of like-minded people and marched from Glamorgan to Berkshire. So they marched from Wales to England. They wanted to raise awareness of the nuclear weapons policy of the British government, specifically the plan to site cruise missiles, that's the nuclear warheads, as an RAF base near Newbury. Thank you very much. As part of the defence policy known as mutually assured direction, or MAD for short. In the run-up to the march, the group had done their best to alert the media, but finding no press waiting for them when they arrived at RAF Greenham Common, and only a security guard who mistook them for the cleaners, they chained themselves to the gate, thinking this would arouse some interest. Amazingly, nothing happened, so they decided to stay until something did. And a camp was set up at the main gate, which would become known as Yellow Gate. A year passed, and still the media yawned and said their readers
would rather know about Mark Thatcher lost in the Sahara. He was our Prime Minister's son and he was a ne'er-do-well idiot. and Princess Diana giving birth to a boy. We all know about her. So the women agreed that if they were going to raise a protest movement, they had to do it themselves. The first mass action was planned for December the 12th, 1982. Embrace the base on Sunday, close the base on Monday was spread through word of mouth and leaflets passed hand to hand. They had no way of knowing if anyone would turn up. But on that damp winter morning, 30,000 women arrived to link arms around the 9-mile perimeter fence. Many never went home, and Greenham Common Women's Peace Camp was born. And this is where the story of Fallout begins. So that I can never read that line about 30,000 women without feeling really just like I want to cry. It is extraordinary. They did that. They just made leaflets. They handed them out at bus stops. They pinned them up at the library. It was England. It was winter. They really didn't know. It was obviously pre-mobile phones, internet. 30,000 women is an extraordinary event. And it began a movement at Greenham. And Greenham, it lasted 19 years. And they achieved their goals. They did get rid of the cruise missiles and they did reclaim the common land. And when Reagan and Gorbachev signed the INF Treaty in 1987, I think it was, 1993, they cited Greenham women as an inspiration, which is extraordinary. The women put up with the British government licensing the army to use live ammunition on them. Vigilantes would come at night on their motorbikes and hurl buckets of maggots and blood at them. The bailiffs would come and tear down their camps. They were in prison. Their children were taken away, but still they stayed and still they achieved their goals. And they did it all through a policy of non-violent direct action. So what really makes me feel wild and outraged about this is that it is not taught in schools. I've only met one person under the age of 30 who's heard of it. Yeah. Most people in the media, and this is how the media reported it when I was a child, and excuse the language, but this was exactly how they reported it, just a bunch of dirty lesbians getting in the way. That was the headline with Daily Mail and all the way through the 80s. So they have been completely sidelined and sunk beneath the waves. So Fallout has become, it's a novel, and it's a novel I care about and I love, but it seems now to have become something where I want Greenham and the women of Greenham and what they represented and what we can learn from them to be made visible again and to be elevated to where they belong. So it's become a mission as well as just a novel. And I'm really, every time I get to talk about it with brilliant people like you, that's one step closer to it being known more widely around the world. Want me to read a little bit?
Yes, yeah.
So basically, it's a novel about a teenage girl who runs away to Greenham Common. Bridget is our hero. I'm not going to read a bit of Bridget. I'm going to read another member of the cast. But Bridget is our hero. She's 15 years old. She does not give a stuff about politics, couldn't care less. She just thinks her parents are embarrassing. Her father is obsessed with building a fallout shelter in their house. And one day her art teacher says, does she want to come to this protest movement? So she thinks, yeah, I'm right, I'll go. So she does, she lies to her parents and she gets in the minibus at dawn and she drives out to embrace the base. But as she arrives and the sun is coming up, she sees the camp for the first time and she sees, more importantly, the fence. And the other book I brought along is this one, Women for Peace. One of the things that became really famous at Greenham were the banners that the women made. They hung on the 9-mile perimeter fence. And this brilliant book, please do have a look. This brilliant book is just full of photographs of the banners they made. And the fence became as much as a protest in itself. Here they are wrapping themselves in wool. I'll pass it around. As it did a kind of gallery of protest. So women would hang their wedding dresses on that fence. They would hang these banners. They would hang pictures of their children. And it became a protest in itself. So when Bridget turns up, on 1982 and December 12th, and she sees that fence for the first time. And she sees 30,000 women around her, women that up until now have just been, mums at the bus stop and dinner ladies and grannies with their trolleys in high streets. She suddenly sees them for what they really are, which is human beings who've come together collectively to care. And it just blows her mind. So she runs away into the camp and refuses to go. So it is a coming of age, and she is surrounded. It's an ensemble piece. So she's surrounded by lots of other women, and the women I've chosen to represent really and be their own person in the book. There's a grandmother called Maureen who's run away from, she's left Ireland. There's Cerise, who's a Spanish anarchist whose grandparents were killed by Franco. There's Kate, who I'm going to read to you now. Kate, I found one of the most interesting people to read because she's a middle-class woman. She has a husband called Simon, who she thinks is very progressive. But one of the really interesting things about Greenham, and it was majority white, was because it was the first time, really, that white women in the UK found out what the boot of the state feels like. It was the first time they didn't do as they were told. Because up until then, they'd been going along with, the tide was with them. They were going along doing as they were told without even realising it. They were in the kitchen, they were bringing up their children, they were being a feminist up to a point. And Kate goes off and is who she feels she wants to be, and then she discovers that actually the binds around her were invisible. I was like that probably. Let's call her only a middle-class woman giving us all lentils for our lunch and all the rest of it. But it was only when she went off to Greenham that she discovered as well. There's feminism up to a point, and that's not protest. That's just another glass cage. So this is Kate. Everyone at CND and at school said they didn't know how Kate did it. 5 girls under 16. How did she manage to do anything besides laundry, cooking, shopping, cleaning, starting all over again? She'd say what a helpful mother-in-law she had and that she couldn't do it without Simon. And they'd look flabbergasted when she told them how he shared the washing up. The other mums would say, imagine my Gary going anywhere near a sink, and laugh, and Kate would feel excluded. She'd want to say she manned the anti-apartheid table or the Amnesty International table or canvassed for the Labour Party or handed out leaflet for Greenham. How can you stand it? But the other mums who'd passed by her table with their strollers, with their children pulling on their arms, looked at her with pity as they headed off to the cake stand. And instead she'd hide photographs of beatings and bombs under her palm and say, please come, we've meetings every month. Half wishing she could hide her morals as easily and join them for a slice of Victoria sponge. Up until the summer of that year, that's all she'd done, man the stalls. She tried to inject the phrase, woman the stalls, but it hadn't stuck. And so she'd manned the stalls, handed out leaflets and watched the other mothers pass by. She was ravaged by the pain of injustice, the stupidity of government. Yet a sense of helplessness fitted in between sweeping up Lego with the bulldozer of her hand. It kept her doing little else until the sinking of the Belgrano. Up until that massacre, she hadn't put her body in the way. The Belgrano was the ship that was sunk during the Falklands War in the 80s. And now the bloody Maggie and Ronnie show, she'd fumed at Simon. Supper in the Hilperton household, Simon had made nut loaf. They're calling it a die-in, she dished out salad. At the torpedoing of an Argentinian warship, as Thatcher celebrated the death of 323 men, Kate's local CND had announced an action led by Greener women to lie in the road when President Ronald Reagan came over. Like Lady Di, said Petra, who'd been obsessed with the royal wedding to the point that Kate had felt ashamed. No, not like Princess Diana. Amy, hands. Her little girl pulled a chair to the sink. Simon turned on the tap. Their kitchen was twice the size of the others on the street. Open plan. Kate had insisted on it. It was Ray Reynolds who'd shown the round. When Kate knocked on the wall dividing the front room from the kitchen, he'd said to Simon, "Why would you want to see all that cooking going on?" And both men had laughed. A dark front room for men, when what Kate wanted was inclusivity and to get as far away from the 1950s as she could. Peggy was already peeping out from behind her skirts when they bought number 5. Opening up the kitchen was the first thing they'd done. Simon bought the table from a cart boot sale on the A3. A decade later, it was covered in children's drawings and scarred with crayons and spills. When you get your head run over, Robin was the elder of the twins by 26 agonising minutes. "We're representing the dead in a nuclear war," Kate sat down and picked up her fork. "On a weekday," Simon dried in his hands and lifted her from sink to table. "Don't mind the robe, Mommy." The twins were identical, white blonde. She'd tied ribbons to their wrists when they were younger, so as to tell them apart. "They'll stop the cars." She squeezed Robin's hand and moved her plate closer in the hope there wouldn't be the same scene as the last time Simon cooked. How were men to learn if women didn't let them try? She pretended his vegetarian chili con carne was delicious, and she'd do the same tonight if she had to. The children looked at her with pain. Simon asked his mother to do a school pickup. Kate took the bus into the city and put her body in the way of capitalism. It had switched her on as if 16 years of childbearing had put her spirit on pause. It had lit her up. She had lain in the road in the city of London with men like Simon, only not like Simon at all, stepping over her and walking round her. Men on foot getting irritated, men in cars blaring their horns. Kate and the Greenham women with her were the bodies of war, the exploded and slowly failing, the cancerous and fallen where they stood. It had fouled up the working day. It had made a point. Kate had gone as a mother and come back as an activist. The activist she'd been before Simon, before Peggy. Raising conscious girls and having a husband who shared the cooking was suddenly no longer enough. At the campfire, Kate found a chair, the view of the fence. Somewhere in the throng of silhouettes was Peggy, shouting for every woman in their ancestral line who'd been shut up, bound, gagged, told to get back to the kitchen. She was so proud of her. When their copy of Protect and Survive had clanged through the letterbox, ordered by Simon, Peggy had thrown it across the room and shouted, "We're all fucked." Kate had been so angry, she'd threatened to chain herself to the railings of Downing Street. Simon had read When the Wind Blows to the twins at bedtime and given them nightmares. Kate searched the faces around her, the wrapped in scarves, the hats pulled low. But even in that disguise of winter, she could see that none of them were Bridget.
Oh, we have a lot to talk about.
We do.
As I'm here with allergies and whatnot.
So I think that one of the reasons we loved, I mean, when you and I came across each other, as writers, as authors, and then as publisher and author, we were both thinking about the zeitgeist and where this book would live. And there was, when you talk about the zeitgeist, and you say, okay, so we're mostly Gen X in our situation and in our set of readers. We are Gen X women. And what do Gen X women, at least in America, all hold in terms of commonality and fear? And we talked about the different things that American women have, and in these 70s and 80s that we grew up with. And so what's one of them? What's one thing you grew up with that your brother or your father took you to too early?
Quicksand.
Yeah. We all feel afraid of quicksand, Scooby-Doo.
Quicksand was everywhere. It was everywhere.
Yeah,
So I lived in the Barcelona, quicksand.
quicksand. Which
Quicksand seemed like a possible death.
I understand. Jaws. I feel like
you had to be satisfied about quicksand in the 70s.
It was not been.
But more seriously, also we all grew up with Jaws. I wrote about earlier today. Jaws was something your father or your older brother totally took you to see.
Well, we had a book called Monsters of the Deep.
Yes.
So I still can't stand on a rock in theatre.
Yeah. No, terrified
Because it's going to go like that, obviously.
right after that. years. And then also, I think in the States, I mean, we knew about. I think we had a big sensation from our parents as youth, but living with a film like and that trailer that played endlessly after the evening news the day after. Just so
The day after.
Yes, the day after with Jason Robards and Steve, whatever his name is, Guterman or something. Yes. And Joe Beck Williams constantly everywhere in the 70s, 80s. And so living with that sense of annihilation.
Close Encounters was another thing, because if you didn't get it from the sea, you got it from that little potato. Remember the building of the mashed potatoes? And
Yes.
and it was just to follow up signs. Like, oh, no, I just lived next to a Russian embassy. Oh, and it was not, the Russians were coming. Yeah, it still are, but it was very, it was kind of barbed wire. There was security. And
From the Russians.
Yeah.
The song that was.
I remember singing that in the dining room of my mum's house, marching up and down, thinking, this is it. I think that's
They won't bury us. That we dance alone. All of this
drop and separate drills. We have those.
Under the cats.
From the nuclear war there. These two couplets that have said from, that's going to be it.
Let's just say, when we were looking around at the zeitgeist and the kind of the tyrannical toddlers that we have in our current geopolitical situations, we've got a lot of fear and anxiety. What was amazing to me, I think, even this first of the hearing of Eleanor talk about it and read it out loud. Actually, she streamed a portion of it on Substack. Yeah, I did, and it was riveting because what it was doing, it was taking all of that geopolitical speak out of it and bringing it down to the very personal, the young girl coming at this as if you were then a young, unrealized, you were unpoliticized, and you hadn't thought of any of this. You just knew it wasn't you.
And it wasn't right.
And it wasn't right. And it wasn't the world. You didn't have any agency about it yet.
But I think that was the beauty of, because I think originally when I thought about the novel, Bridget was much older. But then it became clear that having a 15-year-old, to experience it through a 15-year-old, we all know what 15-year-olds are. They've got them all, definitely been that. They're totally black and white thinking. They're totally, idealistic. But it meant that real truth that she can have, because we can get lost in the nuance of it all. But at 15, it's either right or it's wrong. And she was clear that this is wrong. But she didn't really understand
where she was going and what she was.
Well, the bit at home, because really, the novel is very much, it's Greenham Common is a character in the novel, and it's very much the character which makes Bridget grow up. But what she's forced to do is bring Greenham home and apply those lessons to something that's the secret in her family.
Yeah.
And that's really what she's running away from.
And for a publisher, what you're looking for are these stories that are going to resonate across all of the markets and all of the places. I'm not saying it's about markets, but it's going to resonate across all of the audiences because you see this family coming to a place with each other as they're all coming back to each other throughout the story. And I'm not going to spoil it because it's wonderful how they come to each and connect with each other.
They've all buried something.
They've all buried something.
Yeah. And they're all in that sense, fearing, well, the fallout from that secret being released. And also that the bomb of that going off in their own lives. So Greenham is also serves as a kind of metaphor, because actually Bridget's running away from something in the home. And again, as a 15-year-old, she's not really conscious of what it knows. There's an untruth somewhere. And when she gets to Greenham, it seems like she's much more vulnerable. She's much more exposed. And she's literally close to atomic bombs and the fence. But actually, she's closer to the truth of what her life is and what humanity can be. And it's a much more honest place. And I think that's why when she arrives there, and so many women who came to Greenham, when they got there, however tough it was, however violent it could be, and however vulnerable and exposed they were safer in the sense that they were living the truth. And they were all looking after each other. And they were all looking after each other, which just goes to show as well. I think one of the things that I've really understood about Greenham in terms of what we can really apply to now. There was an enormous amount of disagreement at Greenham. There was no ideology. It wasn't like, they fought and argued all the time, but they all agreed on one thing, which was put the bombs down. And that idea, they coalesced around this idea, and it allowed them to work harmoniously enough together to achieve it. And I look at this place that we've got to now, where it's hard now, or at least we're getting out of practice of being in the room with really different political views, social, do you know what I mean? All those different views, and to learn again how to be in the room. There's no doubt we could find a million opposing views in this room. But if we could come from a place of basically our shared humanity, put the bombs down, and then we'll talk. And that's what Greenham really, and that's what she learned. That's what Bridget learned.
And it rippled out beyond Greenham and beyond the UK, because what it did was it led that sort of direct action, which was nonviolent and very very enduring and longstanding. It rippled out to places like Nevada test site years and years later, where I ended up, and this is why this book did resonate with me, because I was Bridget. I went away from left college for a weekend and was able to spend the time, and was the girl running across the desert protesting with 100,000 other women and Martin Sheen, and we all got this together. And it was a momentous moment of seeing all these different women together saying, we don't want all this toxicity, all of these bombs buried, all this waste buried here. We need to do something. And then the same things happened in New York City. And the doctor, James Muller, he lives here, and he's the one who organized with all the Russian physicians around the world, physicians in different countries, to start the nuclear non-proliferation movement. And he led the New York City march and rally against, and ended up winning the Nobel Peace Prize for that work that he did. Just about saying, okay, we may have a million things that we differ on, but let's just drop this piece for humanity and say, no, thank you.
Because it is a really simple idea, unilateral disarmament. I mean, it's pretty easy to understand, and I think one of the kind of like perhaps point of argument around and about arming yourselves is whether nuclear bombs keep the peace or make us more unsafe. And it's always been my view that they make us more unsafe, because we all know if you're carrying a gun, you're more likely to get shot. So you just got to scale that out.
And I would say that Nevada Tennessee wasn't a place of violence at all, because I remember being thrown over the cops' shoulder and seeing them saying, "Is he hurting you?" And them saying, and them asking and asking. And I'm like, no. And they're like, why not? So I know how to do this. And that is when you know, and you've You've learned like, here's how we do this. Here's how we have a form of protest that actually is a conversation that actually speaks and conveys the point, and we're not in a place where we can do that anymore as a society. It's too dangerous. It's too escalated.
Although, I mean, like in spontaneous acts of civil disobedience and organizing around that, we saw it in Minnesota. We saw it with No Kings. We saw it with Me Too.
We see it with No Kings, very successful.
You know what I mean? Because the beautiful things about all of those is that there's no leader or head. And that's at Greenham, one of the reasons it was able to persist for 19 years, because they would come and try and arrest the leader. There was no leader.
I think it's hard at universities because, and I don't want to, necessarily go down the rabbit hole, but I mean, I think it's trickier because there is such a retaliatory.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like people often ask me about protest and what can they do, and what if they don't want to, what if they're scared, and all that kind of thing. And I always feel like you choose the protest for which you have the resources. You should never. There's no comparison. One person putting the body in the way of a bomb compared to somebody who refuses to dye their hair. There's still acts of protest. There's still acts of saying, this is what I believe in. I will age visibly and I won't be ashamed of it. That is an act of protest just as much as tying yourself to the fence of values.
So with her lapel kit that she would wear her.
There's a million ways.
Yes. So have you you knew what she thought by the pimp she had on. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
because I think we do have to respect each other's feeling around danger. What they're willing to put themselves in the way of. And I think, again, with Greenham, it's a really good example. Not everybody went over the fence. Not everybody went to Greenham, but Greenham's motto was, we're all Greenham women are everywhere. We're all Greenham women. And that included the men. Which is right. Actually, just to say as well, that the only reason it was all women at Greenham was because they knew that violence would escalate from the police if men were there. So it wasn't anti-men. And it's important. I mean, I'm constantly saying this because, patriarchal structures are what produced this top-down crazy tyrant situation we've got now. And that affects all of us. That's men and women.
I think that what I want to see, what I hope to see, and what I'd love to know more about also, though, since, I mean, yes, there's this larger unsolvable piece that we're all coping with. And maybe it is solvable, it's solvable. The democratic process. But what I'd love to get into as we go through this is you have a chance. So the book is launching in the States, and it's probably going to get a new cover that as we move along, that speaks to an American audience. And we know how the Americans look at a cover and say, the day after, and that sort of thing. I want to understand more about your craft process because I stayed out of it when you were working with our editor. We have a wonderful editor on our team. Her name is Molly Zakor, and she edits for your favorite author, one of your favorite authors, Elizabeth Strout, and worked on Paula Kittredge. I worked on this for Jess Boys, I believe as well. And was this your first time working with an editor?
Yeah.
Author or editor. Yeah. And so what was different or what made you change? Or did you have to educate her about reading? And what?
I have to educate everyone about
Yeah.
That's amazing. Absolutely everyone. Which is absolutely fine. I've got totally used to that. I think one of the brilliant things that Molly did was that she took, in the original story, it starts with Bridget in the kitchen with her family, but Molly took chapter 14, which is when Bridget gets lost at Greenham, and she put that right before the book. And that's just to kind of like, you've got to land straight in it, because the kind of point that gets the book moving is we've lost Bridget.
Mm-hmm.
So that was Molly. Yeah, which was a brilliant idea. And I think as well, she's much younger than she's 30. She's 29, I think like way younger.
Oh, no, I think she's 38.
Oh, was 38. Okay, well, she's
really young. We're outing you. We are
25.
No, but she looks super.
But yeah, having that younger perspective, I think, because, writing a 15-year-old, I've been 15, so I could really get into Bridget.
But it was really useful having a younger editor, just giving that eye view. Because what I didn't want it to be was a lecture. And that was really important. Absolutely at the center of Fallout is it's a story about a girl running away to a peace camp, and the secrets that are uncovers in her own family and bringing Greenham home. And so just to keep it like that, and it has its darkness, but it has its funny as well.
Yes. And it has
So that makes it sound funny.
love, totally.
Yeah.
There's so much. You're like, you cannot believe that this family can come together in the way that they come together.
Yeah, I mean, Janet, so Bridget's mother's called Janet. She's 30 years younger than Ray, her husband. She's the dinner lady at Bridget's school. And I think she was one of my favorite characters to write. She probably goes through the biggest transformation, I'm going to say, as well. What I love about her is that she's not a firebrand political, like the other characters are already like switched on to politics. Janet isn't, and sort of never is really, but she's got a very clear baseline, again, of human kindness and goodness and what matters and what doesn't. And that could easily be translated into a political framework, really, in terms of her inclusivity. And she conducts herself in a way that is really admirable. I can't give away what that means, but
I can't say I see Olivia Colman playing.
oh my God. She's the wrong age.
Is it optioned or?
We've had some bites.
Yes,
That's great.
Yeah, I mean,
a really good one.
We love our English series. So.
Yeah. So you watch, I did hear.
Oh my gosh, I'm watching The Crown for the third time.
Oh, yeah.
I've never seen it.
I can't believe you have not.
I know, right?
Because every time I watch it, I see something new.
Yeah.
That's
Which queen are you?
Okay, so I'm with Olivia Colman.
Are you with Olivia?
Yes, so it's season 4, episode 9. So
great.
yeah.
Interesting. How does that was it?
I told and had
But very sucks.
that's showing you how to talk in the most.
Yeah, we should.
The most.
Oh, wait,
Let's anybody else? Let's check out. Yeah. What is your connection? Did you know somebody that was involved with this, or
No, I remember as a child watching it on the news. My mum, so I grew up in a house. My dad was a Tory conservative. My mum's a socialist. So there was constant politics at the table. So my dad loved Maggie Thatcher. My mum did not find it funny when he talked about her, and he thought it was very funny to wind my mum off. So we were really brought up on a diet of social. Well, I was more like her. So it's like, we were often watching the news. We had the Guardian newspaper, so I already understood and knew. So I think that was my kind of road in. But I've got a series of novels I'm writing about sort of big political moments, like 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And the one in the 50s is about a marriage. It's written, but we haven't in this stuff going on. Anyway, it's about a marriage that falls apart against the first CND march to Aldermaston. So Aldermaston is a research station, which is still there. There's still a camp there protesting it. And in 1958, CND, for the first time, decided to march from London there to Aldermaston, which is 4 days. And my mum was on that march. And there's a guy called Leslie Anderson who made a fantastic 20-minute documentary about it. And the very last scene of documentary is my mum's face. So I remember her telling us often when she went to watch the news in the movie theatre, as you did in the 50s, she was watching the news, she saw this, I was on that march, and then there was her face. It's amazing, amazing to watch. So that was always there in my mind. So I was very aware she was a member of CND and all the rest of it. So I knew all about it. So I was thinking about this series of novels, and I'd already written that one, it's 1958. And then I've got the 60s and the 70s are in my mind, but the 80s, the moment I thought of the 80s, I thought of Greenham. But what amazed me is that no one's written a novel there set there before. I mean, just on a technical novelist level, if you look at stories, this is 19 years, this is well over 30,000 women, every single one of them with a different story. It's like shooting fish in a barrel, man. You just any story you want is there.
I don't remember that we were educated about Greenham.
We were not.
Never been.
And I think that's kind of okay, we're here in America. Okay, maybe we'll let the educationists off the hook. But in the UK, I mean,
No, that's insane.
it's insane.
Yeah.
You know, you have every single primary school child knows who the suffragettes are.
Iconic.
And you have days of suffragettes. And there's no Greenham women with bolt cutters down their boots coming to school wearing, perhaps, you know, none of that.
It's were educated in the opposite way of just peer, I think, in the 80s.
Or even, I mean, in the 60s, I feel like, you know, huge social injustices were completely glossed over.
Yeah.
I remember watching Roots, you know, on my mother's little black and white TV.
Yeah.
And I came in the kitchen. I said, "This is not real, Mom." She said, "Oh, no, it's real." We did not really learn about, we learned about slavery in the most glossed over, not impactful.
And it's taken this long for that wrong to be righted. Do you know, I found out recently that at the British Museum in London, there is no room on slavery.
It's incredible.
Can we just take a breath?
That's kind of, yes.
That's the. They were nothing.
They don't say a word about it. You know, touring plantations in the South. All those plantation houses were built on the backs of slaves.
Yeah.
They don't say anything about that. Even today,
Yeah.
I was there with my children 10 years ago. Nothing
Nothing.
in the books.
Yeah.
No, it's weird.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand there's an element of shame, quite rightly, but nevertheless, there's an element of shame to just like, can't look. But then also, of course, you know, with that, and good people have shame. I have shame about all kinds of things. Do you know what I mean? But like, until you look and face it, and collectively, I say, "Okay, we did this," whether it's slavery or, you know, I mean, the whole Me Too. Obviously, I imagine that every single person in this room's got some sort of Me Too experience, and Greenham. Until we kind of get to the bit of letting that belong in our history, we can't really start to make any changes or move forward. And it's that sense of belonging. The fact, that the British government decided to bring nuclear weapons. In fact, they still have them in the UK, but it is so hushed up. But they're still there. But until we do that, and then start, obviously, every child, A-level student, if you're studying women's history, politics, it's nuts. I plan to change it. I mean, I have ambitions. For every book I write, I have ambitions. And for this one, damn, wants to win prizes. He doesn't. It's me. Lisa. But I want to put Greenham on the school curriculum. That's what I want.
Really great.
That's what I want.
Yeah, it's cool. Everyone should know about history and impactful, meaningful things that happened in our time.
Right.
And before our time, and it's not always that way. It's selective and it's glossed over, and that's very worrisome.
It's worrisome, and
then re-glossed over right now.
Right, exactly. And then, exactly. Look where we are now. Yeah.
But if we could do that, then we have, more digging up. I mean, you've got to say, which I love, it's never underestimate the power of being
annoying.
And being able to say, no, this happened. Here's what happened. And these are the voices. And we're not going to let them be edited out by AI or silenced by AI or it's on machine learning of these kinds of things. We're going to observe these voices, promote these voices, amplify these voices so that we don't have little golden hooks teaching us about slavery which is what we kind of had in the 70s. It was very, Can you remember those books?
I do.
And I think collecting around a really simple idea that we all deserve to live without threat. Yeah, it's a real simple, right? That. And then, being able to speak about it when the opportunity arises and being absolutely okay with where we are in terms of where we want to put our bodies and our voices and being okay with that. So we don't compare one against the other. And those three things, that clear human right to live without threat to my body, to my home and to my blood is something I think we can all collect around. Yeah. Do you think, in your in-person protests, do you think there's a place where we've had the marches and get no kings all but do you think obviously they should be allowed to happen and they do happen, but now when you go down, you have like doxing, you have, AI documenting you, and you have such an entrenched this side, that side. Do you think they're helpful? Do you think they move? I mean, you go there, you bond, it feels good. It's sometimes that you think they move the needle in any way now, or like we've passed the moment.
I mean, I think that's such a good question. What's the point? Really, right? And because I've been on a million marches as well, like right back from when I was probably 15 or 16. And here I am still doing it. So if one thinks, well, the point of a march is to affect lasting change, like tactile change, then we could say, well, they don't work because here we are still doing it. But that's not the only point of a march. It is that exercising of one's voice and one's right to get out there. So yes, I will still always get out on the street because the alternative is unthinkable. So I think that the point really, if I'm going to find a point which gives like longevity to it and isn't like, what it achieved, like it's not focused on specific goals like the end of the Iraq War, like back in the day. Then it's just like that continual practice and exercise of using my voice all the time, because the alternative is that I don't get out on the street, and that's just totally unthinkable. But to your point about face recognition and stuff, I mean, I really understand anybody who says I do not want to put myself in that, and I think that's okay. We cannot be standing judgment on each other because there are a million ways to be annoying. That's just absolutely. And I think honestly, this idea of collective effervescence is, I think, what you're getting at is when you get out together and you're feeling that's actually really good for a society. It's powerful, isn't it? For anyone who stood in a crowd, I mean, it is an amazing experience.
Oh yeah, and I also think bringing your body to bringing your own body. Nowadays, most people don't do that anymore. Right? You sit behind your computer, complete anonymity. And so you have no responsibility for your voice. So being there, it doesn't have to be a protest, or you're just having a conversation with someone else that you may not agree with, but you're there in conversation. When you're doing it through all these devices and AI is just going to make it worse, you aren't bringing yourself to the conversation. You're actually hiding yourself. And that's why, and people don't even know themselves anymore.
I mean, that's also a good point. Exactly. But because when you stand, well, here we all are now, we're engaged in this room, we're all present. And there's a sense of like, we're taking a risk and there's a vulnerability to it. But there's also what comes with that is this amazing, like, oh, but it turns out it's okay. And that constant experience and having that strengthened all the time, exactly like choosing to be in person is an active protest.
Well, especially now.
It wasn't 50 years ago, but it is right now. That is an active protest, exactly. And constantly reminding yourself, I mean, mainly, people are good. I say this to my kids all the time. They're all suffering, and you know what I mean? It's like terrifying when your kids go suffering.
It's true, but it's hard to believe.
Most people in the world are really nice.
And it's hard to believe because they don't get you don't hear about them.
No.
And the channels for all the hate are loud and everywhere. That's pervasive.
Find good people.
Yes.
But I know.
So again, I think that
people aren't afraid to go out to the world. They're afraid to be social with anybody.
Just exactly. Yes,
so
I think that's
dangerous.
90s. It's a little bit. But actually, that's one of the great things about AI is because it is. I'm not saying forcing, but it is encouraging us to meet face to face again because we can all try. We know we're in this room. We know we're all speaking the other message. Anybody up there?
Yeah, I'll start.
Yeah, exactly. And it is bringing us back round to that. And I'm not against AI. Actually, I just think like good voices need to inform it and use it for what it's built for, and not for all the other stuff. Me too. Yeah. It has some jobs to do. Yeah, we're in the very early stages of it, but it's rapid. But yeah, I think meeting face to face is like
It's the best.
And having discourse with people who you don't agree with.
That's a lost ability.
Well, that's something
And it's
killing
Being in person that forces you to do it in a human way.
Yeah.
The people that are shouting all the hate on the internet, they're hiding behind their screen name and they're, but if they were facing that person, if they were standing with that person,
You have to
if they would see that hateful.
You'd have to. Do you know Sally Reid? You must know Sally Reid, right? Wonderful Sally Reid. So she's a Substacker. Hi, Sally, if you're there. So I often have, I do Substack lives with Sally often. We do them like regularly. And one of the reasons we do this is because we have completely opposing views when it comes to faith. She is a practicing Celtic Christian. Her faith is very important to her. And she talks about it. She's incredibly informative around it. And I am not that. I have a completely different engagement and relationship with the great Greenham, Simon Cool. But we get to have this amazing discourse where two people with totally different framings of the world get to talk together. It's great practice. I mean, I'm working my way up to talking to somebody live on Substack with really really opposing political views. But I want to get there because actually I'll be like, okay, I want to listen. I always want a baseline with anyone of basic human kindness.
Well, there's got to be respect.
There's got to be that baseline.
Yeah.
You want to agree on that baseline. Let's hear it. I want to hear it.
Yeah, I think that is. I dream of that Carrie Russell type of conversation.
Carrie Russell. Oh, I love the diplomat.
She's
that hair. I have that hair most of the time.
I really love that they talk and talk and talk, because that was one of my first jobs. Actually, out of grad school, was working for a NATO attaché. And it was that was the job, was to work it out. And to talk with a lot of people who respect you, but don't agree with you at all.
My father's one of his best friends was very high up in the CIA. And his motto was, find your way to yes. So he'll be sitting down with, I'd imagine, find your way to yes.
Yes. And there's a lot of interesting sort of to be learned through that kind of engagement. And there's a lot of great friendships that can come out of that kind of engagement.
Yeah, I don't want all of my friends to think exactly the same. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
I want to learn new things.
Yes. I mean, when Brexit happened in the UK, oh man. But I've got a great friend and her husband, he voted for it, and we had to really be at the same table, and we were heated, like the mood in the nation. I know you can all relate. But we just had to find a way to yes, which just meant, okay, you think this and I think that. Okay.
But you have to both want to.
You've got to both want to agree or disagree.
I mean, I love Facebook.
About it now?
Yeah.
Do you know how he feels about it?
You know, I think he tries to make up like it's somehow, he stands quite far back like it's okay, but I know that he's really ashamed. I mean, it was just, that was the year David Bowie died and Brexit happened and everything just went south. How do you all cope with being in the room with what's going on right now and like really diverse political views? Do you have experience of?
Can't not have experience.
Of that within families though?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
My issue was all about October 7th. That's what really affected me.
Okay.
In church. Yeah.
Okay.
So I look at like the No Kings and people against Trump, and I understand where they're coming from, but I also think you have no idea. This has been 3,000 years of a struggle for us.
Yeah.
And the whole world is against us right now.
Yeah.
So I'm coming from, I respect everyone's opinion, but I come from a completely different place in terms of protesting and Israel rallies. And
And where do you find a place to rest when you're right up against it? So,
meditate. And also I become more religious and
yes.
and doing and going to rallies and being more supportive and educating people.
I think regardless, anything that's forcing anybody to step up and show up, whether they agree with you or not, I think we need to celebrate that. Right? I mean, I left Facebook, 6 years ago now, not because people didn't think the way I thought, because people that I knew and respected kept missing the point and arguing about one thing or another about our country. And I said, what are we arguing for? Wasn't the whole point of this country that we're supposed to not always think the same and we're supposed to respectfully be able to have that conversation? That just made it worse. And I got just attacked.
And when do you think the slide happened in this country of that bit where
COVID didn't help.
Okay, so that isolated.
Yeah.
Isolation. Geez.
That's think about it.
It was just
I mean, just in my workplace, I went from working, in a building with 1,000 people and having 200 people that I worked with on a day-to-day basis to being completely by myself at home overnight.
Right. So then once ideas become like they fill the room. Yeah.
One that you have.
I think
craziness.
you guys had a much more of a lockdown than we did in the UK.
You don't have a lockdown in the UK?
The first lockdown we had, for a great many of us, was absolutely sublime. It was the most incredible weather. It was amazing. It wasn't hardcore. It just meant that you were just suddenly peace ran. The sky took blue, everything just calmed down. And then we had 2 more lockdowns after that. And each one was only about 2 to 3 months. And they weren't really hardcore. I mean, there were in some places there were, but not really. I remember coming to my niece's wedding in San Francisco a couple of years ago. And I was talking to some taxi driver and he told me, we were locked down for 2 years. I was like, what?
Yeah, I think it's also location.
Yeah, depending on where it's
Sending with the state. Like in the South, there really wasn't lockdown. A lot of my Southern friends were like, "Oh, did you have COVID?" I'm like, "With COVID." And then my nieces they went to school where Bill Gates was kids, so they were like on it first. They were on remote looking. Like the end of Jan, like when we first started hearing about it, they're so going to be remote for 6 weeks. I was like, oh my God, my kids have that remote 6 weeks. Yeah, they were remote for like 2 years.
I mean,
yeah. So,
well, I'm going to be really, because it takes 25 to 30 years for a national trauma to reach the surface of the artistic pen. So
it's interesting.
Yeah, isn't it? So in fact, there's so much about Greenham happening right now, and it's about 25, 30 years since. So, and the same with the Troubles in Ireland, that took about the same thing for Milkman. So, and HIV, that same thing. It just takes, for some reason, there's some sort of collective for the arts. There are a documentary about Greenham. There's been a great film called Gentle Angry Women by Barbara Santi. It's it's on very minimal release, so it's quite hard to get hold of.
Was it made account recently? Was it
like now?
Now.
Yeah. So that's the first really kind of overview, because it takes 3 young women in Nevada. So there's maybe 1 Welsh and 2 Americans, and they recreate the walk from Wales to Berkshire. So it's a whole kind of celebration of it. There've been a lot of non-fiction by Greenham women. And you can see a lot on YouTube and stuff like that. But the actual kind of it rising up and becoming a narrative that Penelope shares the story. Now, this is the very first one.
Yeah.
Can you believe it? I just can't believe it before.
There's so much strong comedy here.
I think it's funny. It's funny, by the way, as well. There are jokes. There aren't jokes, but there's it's the 18s.
And I feel like I don't want to jinx it, but I feel like you have a really good chance. I mean, it's my book, and I think you could. Yeah.
I mean, it's hitting the zeitgeist. I think, this is a speech I made at my other launch, but, no author, every author wants to hit the zeitgeist with their novel, obviously. But when the zeitgeist is like crazy madness, tyrants threatening the world, I'd rather that wasn't happening. Honestly, in my book, it just wasn't read. But it just so happens that we had hit a moment bang on time. And here we are. So timing is kind of,
which is
a mixed blessing. For me, it's a mixed blessing. But I think probably nobody wants what's happening now to be happening.
When Mueller was going on NPR a few weeks ago and saying we need to absolutely pay attention to what happens, at Greenham and what happens in New York with the New York rally is it's happening now.
Yeah.
And it was just such a surprise to see them say and all of that.
Yeah. And I think the difference now, these women were leaving home and they were putting their body, they were like living rough. It was rough.
They were happy. And they're
So I'm not sure.
playgrounds were empty.
Yeah, playgrounds were empty, all the mother things.
Yeah.
But I don't know now. I'm not sure now whether all of us who have got much more used to this comfort and going, do you know what I mean? So they're changing.
Well,
I don't
the
know.
other folks who are doing it are ordering in.
Yeah.
They are.
They know.
It's so bizarre.
But it's like it's the changing face of protest. So, and then all the, that's the other thing at Greenham. There was no conversation about what is a woman, and you couldn't do that down either.
What do you mean? What is young?
Well, there were transgender women there. They were, right? So nobody was saying, we're going to decide what a woman is before you're allowed to come here.
Yeah.
So we can.
So that would be different now. So there's lots of reasons why Greenham, as it was, could happen now. But,
So was there exclusion among that?
there was none.
None.
So they're
very inclusive.
totally inclusive. Now, the only kind of body group that Greenham women or kind of second wave feminists really had a problem with were the drag queens. Because the drag queens were literally dressing in the garb of exactly what they were trying to get away from as women.
Oh, I see.
So there was a bit of but there was tension all over Greenham.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to eat? I feel like.
Oh, wait, I was just going to finally take a picture from this angle.
Okay. The purple.
Is it look gorgeous? There's there is food, but this is a wonderful. People could cycle in and out to get food.
I just got a picture of that.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I think I'm on. And then even if I'm a little closer in. 1, 2, 3.
Just on my face.
I'll cycle and it's done.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's take turn. Let's do throw those.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
We're doing
1, 2, 3. There we go.
It's like an corn dog jury.
I know, right? I got to get it out of here. Okay.
It's never happened.
No, I was going to say.
Let me see.
Yeah. I mean, you say you told me the honor. Yes, it's all about her. But she was like, what's that? And I put my show.
We're still live. Oh, we are. Oh, thank you for joining us, everyone. We really appreciate it. We'll see you soon.
Are you closing out?